Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Welcome back to Harry's Highlights. On this video, we're going to talk about the book, The Business of the 21st Century, which is all about understanding how businesses are changing, the world is changing, and how basically good jobs are hard to find and even harder to keep. But, as with all things in life, one person's adversity is another person's opportunity. So it's talking about that, and anything in life and in nature, you either adapt or die. So for those that are looking to adapt and who's looking at these situations as a way that they can profit from or they can simply benefit from, this book is what I want to talk about here, is about how moving forward, the things that like our parents, grandparents and great-parents did might have worked really well for them, but might not be as effective for us nowadays in this day and age. And what it's talking about is that the business of the 21st century is people that are looking for that thrill-seeking, financial freedom, opportunity to have that independence, but also a new way to do things that is moving away from the old style and traditional forms and methods. So we're talking about, statistics have shown now that 80% of the population are either working a small business or working a job. But they only make 20% of the total population's income. That means the remaining 20% make up all of the majority of the 80% of income in there. What are they doing differently? It's understanding that a lot of the ways that we did things for a long time were really good in the beginning. Now that we're coming to the 21st century, a lot of things are changing, and with that, the way that we do things need to change as well. If you wanted to, this book is about understanding about how to create wealth and keep it. Because a lot of the things that worked in a few years ago, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that for our parents, it helped them create a lifestyle that they, were comfortable. Or maybe, some even became wealthy and maybe even were able to keep it. Nowadays, it doesn't always apply. See, for a lot of the time, for a lot of the previous generations, things like degrees were really, really important. And agreed, in this day and age, degrees are really, really important for traditional professionals, not for people looking to create wealth. Anybody who's built wealth, any of the rich, any of the wealthy, they put a lot of their focus and time not on traditional forms of education or formal education. They started to put it on things like ways to create systems to build wealth, maintain wealth, and then duplicate that system. See, they tried to find different ways to do things easier, smarter, not always working harder. When you look at things like jobs, for example, they make you work harder and harder only to be taxed more and more. It's designed it gets to a point where working for a job, the more hours you take on, it gets to a point where if you worked any more, you would lose it all to tax, so it's no longer worth it. And unfortunately, sometimes you don't make enough from that job to be able to cover all your expenses. And working more is not actually going to help you get any further forward. It's actually going to send you backwards. Which is why that 20% of the population that's working in things like, businesses, who's looking for that independent, sort of financial freedom, that is doing things in other business systems, are able to utilize tax breaks and opportunities. So the more money they make, even though they may be in a higher tax bracket, they have access to more tax breaks, opportunities, and ways to be able to keep more money. See, that's not something you always taught in formal education. Some of those things there, the avenues and ways that they had to do that was basically through failing forward. So thinking about things how we talked about, one person's adversity is another person's opportunity, is that a lot of people might see that as an obstacle, and other people might see it as an opportunity. See, the people that are looking to look outside the box, that are looking at other ways, that are thinking that this is how we've done things for a long time, maybe things need to change, maybe things need to... If nobody looked at other things differently, we wouldn't even be driving in cars. We'd still walking around on horse and cart. Somebody had to look at it and go, yes, that works. We need to travel further distances. We need to carry more things, bigger weights. We need to do something different. So but that worked. For hundreds of years, we used, mules, donkeys, horses, camels, all these sorts of things all around the world. And then somebody said that adapt or die. What happens, when we want to travel further? What happens when we carry more weight? What happens when we want to do things faster, more efficiently? We need to do things differently. And a lot of those initial people that looked at it and said, even though you guys are doing that one, I'm going to do things differently, might have been seen as radical. But then all of a sudden, as that shift started to happen, now everyone's driving cars. Everyone at the very least has a license. They have the ability to be able to drive a car, But 150 years ago, it would have been obscene to think that to even own a car. It was seen as an extreme luxury. Just as a lot of people probably look at things and think like, I just have a job, my job's always going to look after me, right? Maybe, for your parents, your grandparents, no longer is that company loyalty something that's well rewarded. How often do we hear about situations where people have been working in a company for years, given up, birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, time with their friends, family, and children, only to be let off because the company didn't meet their margins for that year, and all of a sudden they had to, make cutbacks to reach it because, they needed to do more with less. How often does that happen? And that's what we're talking about, how things are changing in this day and age, and that, you need to start looking at what is the business of the 21st century. What are those 20% of the population doing to earn 80% of the total population's income? And some of it is looking at business systems, understanding that the traditional way of doing things isn't always going to fly. And moving forward again, as you continue on the way that the world is moving, we're in the age of information, as it's called now. It's not the industrial age any longer. It's a new century. And with a new time, obviously requires new thinking. So looking at things is how are the people that have now, in this day and age, creating wealth and maintaining it? A lot of them aren't doing it, very few, if any, are doing it in the traditional forms. They're moving away from things like traditional formal education. They're moving away from things like small businesses and jobs. They're looking for ways to have independence, to have control and financial freedom. So they're exploring things and systems that would probably seem radical, seem risky, seem unnecessary to a lot of the people that are following those traditional forms. But as we said, all things in life adapt or die. It's about change. Anything in nature, nothing is stagnant. It is either growing or dying. And in this day and age, the way that we're in this age nowadays where you need to start looking at things that the things that you're doing now, are they going to work for your children and even the following generations? Probably not. So if you have that understanding, applying that to the things that work for your parents probably isn't going to work for us. So we need to start looking forward, thinking of things in a lot more depth and looking at the bigger picture and maybe stepping outside the box, taking a look at things from an objectional, logical perspective and deciding what do we need to do differently. That might be stepping outside of your comfort zone. That might be, doing things that might seem a little bit riskier. We are in the age of entrepreneurs and all these people that are sort of failing forward and doing things they're not doing things based on security, they're doing things based on opportunity. See, a lot of the people that follow that mentality of the job or the small business because they want that security, they want that financial security. When really, when you look at it, especially based on the past, that's almost a fantasy nowadays. It's, overnight you see huge corporations close their doors out of nowhere. One day they're making millions, the next day they got the close sign up, foreclosure, completely gone into liquidation. The people that are there that are creating wealth and maintaining it are taking ownership. They're finding financial freedom through independence. They're applying strategies that haven't really been used or explored by the majority yet. But they're seeing massive results through the massive changes, and they're leading the charge in adapting in a way that is moving us forward, not stagnating or backwards. See, nothing worth accomplishing in this is it ever fast, free, or easy. Anything at all. Whether you apply that to traditional ways of doing things or even, these new styles. Absolutely nothing that's worth accomplishing is fast, free, or easy. We're talking about delayed gratification. You want to harvest the fruit, you're going to have to plant the seed. Nobody walks in and too often there's this microwave mentality of expecting, I want this now, so I should get it now. You need to start looking at things at a sort of, what can I do now to hope for a better tomorrow? It's about looking at things long-term, not short-term. Understanding that even though it might seem a little bit more difficult, the reward is a lot sweeter. So to quickly summarize on everything I talked about here, I really wanted to explain that nowadays good jobs are hard to find and they're even harder to keep. One person's adversity is another person's opportunity. Look at things in a positive mental attitude. Things that look at them if what you used to see as an obstacle, see it as an opportunity. See it as a way, now an opportunity for you to be able to get over it instead of for you to hinder you and stop you. Remember and understand that for a long time, degrees were very important. Nowadays, degrees are very important for traditional professionals, but not necessarily for people looking to create and build wealth. And then remembering that, based on history, we've seen that jobs make you work harder and harder only to tax you more and more. The way of the future is corporations, is business ownership, is entrepreneurship, things that give you access to, they might put you on a higher tax bracket, but gives you tax breaks and opportunities that allow you to keep more money. Then understand that in the grand scheme of things, nothing worth accomplishing is ever fast, free, or easy. Now, we'll be making a lot more of these videos for this training series to help you with your personal development goals. But that's all for now. So until next time, leave a comment below on what you like the most, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the next episode of Harry's Highlights.